Welcome everyone to our reflection on the second reading from Sunday's Mass. About 6 weeks ago, I was starting to decorate my house for Christmas, and I had to go down to the basement and kind of open up a lot of boxes where I thought there were some Christmas decorations. And it was a wonderful experience because I just came across all types of things from years ago that I had not looked at. And I actually found some Christmas decorations that my mom and dad had bought. Oh my gosh, that must have been 20 or 30 years ago. And so it was kind of brought back a lot of memories. And it's kind of fun to rediscover something that you've kind of forgotten about. Well, this sounds a little corny, a little wonky, but I kind of rediscovered chapter 9 of St. Paul's first letter to the Corinthians. So this is week 4 in a 5-week series from St. Paul's letter, his first letter to the Corinthians. And chapter 9 is a fascinating chapter. I'd heard about it and I'd read it, but it just never fell into place before. Listen, I would encourage you to read all of chapter 9. Do yourself a favor. It's going to be shocking what you hear. I'm going to cover some of it now, but it's all in the Bible. I'm not making it up, and it really is fascinating. So usually I read the entire psalm. What I'd like to do is to read parts of chapter 9 for you, because our second reading comes from chapter 9, and it's good to know the larger context. So that's the purpose of doing this. It starts by saying Paul's right as an apostle. So Paul believes he's an apostle. There are certain rights that apostles and missionaries, that's what he really means, are entitled to. And he's going to talk about the rights that the other apostles are taking advantage of, but that he doesn't. So now catch this, pay attention. He says, am I not free? Am I not an apostle? Have I not seen Jesus our Lord? Are you not my work in the Lord, you Corinthians? Although I may not be an apostle for others, so some people don't consider Paul an apostle because he did not know Jesus while Jesus walked on the planet Earth. Although I may not be an apostle for others, certainly I am for you, for you are the seal of my apostleship in the Lord. I've converted you, you Corinthians. Now, pay attention to this. My defense against those who would pass judgment on me is this, those who say that I'm not an apostle. Now he wrote this letter with his friend Sosthenes, so do Paul and Sosthenes, do we not have the right to eat and drink? Do we not have the right to take along a Christian wife, as do the rest of the apostles? And the brothers of the Lord, and Cephas, and Peter? So Paul is saying the other apostles, including Cephas, travel with their wives. We don't do that. Okay? Or is it only myself and Barnabas who do not have the right to work? So they were also attacking his friend Barnabas. Whoever serves as a soldier whoever serves as a soldier at his own expense. Who plants a vineyard without eating the produce? Who shepherds a flock without having some of the milk? So Paul is saying, well, I'm an apostle and we're entitled to be reimbursed for the work we're doing. We're entitled to that. Paul is going to say, but you know what? I don't take any recompense for what I'm doing. This is Paul's independent bourgeoisie spirit. It's pretty cool. So now he's going to explain why he doesn't take advantage of these rights that he has. Yet we have not used this right to be paid for the work that we do, preaching the gospel and traveling. On the contrary, we endure everything so as not to place an obstacle to the gospel of Christ. Do you not know that those who perform the temple sacrifices eat and they belong to the temple, and those who minister at the altar, they share in the sacrificial offerings? Well, they do, But we, Barnabas, Sosthenes, myself, we don't take advantage of what people are entitled to who do the work of God. So, I have not used any of these rights. However, nor do I write this that it should be done in my case. I would rather die than be paid by people so that I can preach the gospel. If I preach the gospel, this is no reason for me to boast. And now we pick up the second reading from Sunday's Mass. For an obligation has been imposed on me, and woe to me if I do not preach it. If I do preach willingly, I have a recompense, but it's from God. But if unwillingly, then I have been entrusted with the stewardship. What then is my recompense? That when I preach, I offer the gospel free of charge, so as not to make full use of my rights in the gospel. Paul doesn't want to be beholden to anyone. He just wants to be about preaching the gospel. That's all that matters to Paul. And Paul fears that if he receives compensation for preaching, it's going to be used against him. So Paul says, to the poor I became poor, to the rich I became rich, to the Jew I became a Jew, to the Gentile I became a Gentile, so that I could preach the gospel to anybody. It just shows how Paul is really dedicated to the mission of evangelization. That's basically what he's saying here. So, obviously, we're entitled to be paid a decent salary. That's a just wage. And everybody's entitled to that. And we're also obligated, if we employ people, to give them a just wage. So we need to learn about that from this reading. Also, Paul reminds us not to be greedy. That we want to be free of any undue attachment to money. And I think the last thing Paul says is we really need to be committed to evangelization. That's what it's all about. And evangelize all types of people. And be flexible, be nimble. Some people need to be evangelized one way. Other people need to be evangelized another way. And Paul was able to go in any direction so that he could at least save some of those that he was sent to preach to. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.